to the Banana Republican. I am James Gorey. Big things are happening in Israel. So let's take a look at the events in the Middle East. Today, from a Christian point of view, the war itself between Israel and Hamas continues to go on. Changes there. Israel, via Netanyahu, has said that they are going to annex and occupy Gaza. Now, what that means in terms of the people living there, not sure. I've heard a lot of different interpretations. Don't know which one is true. Maybe none of them are true, or some kind of partial relation. Who knows? But the war itself is having some huge implications, not just in Israel, and not just in the Middle East, but around the world. And so, on the one hand, Israel's winning the war. There's no question. There was no military contest between Hamas and Israel. Even with Iran lobbing missiles and Hezbollah and the Houthis, all of that, not a challenge to the Israeli Defense Force capabilities. But that's the war in terms of the kinetic warfare. But the propaganda warfare, Israel's losing, and Hamas is winning. In fact, that's what I want to talk about. Besides occupying Gaza, which is a security event, it's what it has done. It has driven France, the UK, and Canada to essentially agree to support the establishment of a Palestinian state. UK has put some criteria. If Israel does a ceasefire, then they'll hold off. But essentially, it's some big countries, France, UK, Canada, joining another 130-something nations around the world, calling for a divided Israel and a Palestinian state and a divided Jerusalem. So that's the bigger war, and Israel is losing that war. There's no question, which according to Hamas leadership are the fruits of October 7th. So their plan to attack the way they did on October 7th, this is the outcome. Well planned, well played, lots of allies in the media. The starvation angle in Gaza, which Hamas is playing a big role in. Hamas is taxing people 16, 18, 20% to get food that's given freely. They're shooting people if they violate the terms of, if they just go grab food. Or they're starving people. Hamas has shot children trying to leave buildings that were going to be attacked by Israel. They've done all kinds. They've shot people who disagree with them, speak up. So Hamas is nothing more than a band of murderers and horrible, horrible, wicked human beings. And yet that's who the world's embracing. And that's a big problem for the world. The U.S. is one of the main states, I think Hungary as well, and a few others, that haven't come out and say we support a Palestinian state. Why should we? Why should we? Hamas is as wicked as they come, and what they've done and what they do and what they support and what they're for, what their mission is, the annihilation of the Jewish people, the annihilation of Israel as a state, as an entity, makes them impossible to negotiate with. And yet here we are. And yet here we are. The world is beating a door to Hamas. So all that's going on, but there's other events that are very important in Israel and elsewhere that are unprecedented in modern times. And this is, it may seem symbolic or even simple to people who are not religious or unaccustomed to what they mean. But I will give you a quick rundown on that. Number one, there are religious events, prophetic events that are occurring. Recently, as we talked about earlier, there was a red heifer sacrificed on the Temple Mount in the rabbinic ritualistic manner that is right out of the Torah and is done historically for a sacrificial or sanctification for the temple. So there hasn't been a temple since AD 70 when the Romans destroyed it. And yet, recently, Jewish priests took a red heifer, not a pure one, not a perfect one, but kind of a dry run, a practice run as it were, and sacrificed the heifer on the site of where the temple used to be for the first time in almost 2,000 years, since AD 70. That's a big deal. if you don't understand what that means, read the Torah or read commentary or watch a video about it. That's a very big deal. In days past, in years past, if that even thought to happen, there'd be huge riots on the Temple Mount. Didn't happen this time. There's some complaints, perhaps, some yelling, blah, 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 but nothing horrible. And that's a big deal. Not just what they did, but the reaction or the minimal reaction. That's an interesting thing. That's something we have to discern here. Second thing, kind of related to that, probably closely related to that, is last Saturday, thousands of Jews, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 Jews, prayed at the Temple Mount, the temple site. Again, the first time they've been allowed to do that like that since AD 70. And again, the reaction was muted from the other side. So what's going on here? Hamas is winning the propaganda battle, the war, and yet the Jews, the Israelis, are sacrificing a cow, are praying in the thousands on the Temple Mount, which is taboo by agreement and by arrangement, and yet that's what they're doing. And the reaction has been minimal. So these are both big deals, and they're huge, and they're prophetic. Now, that may not be your interpretation, especially if you're not religious, if you don't have a sense of the meaning and the importance of these events, then you can quickly come up to speed on. Watch a video or two, do a little reading. But it's a big deal. And it's like, well, not as big as Israel being established in 1948, which itself was another big deal. But it certainly is an indication of where things are going. So I would suggest that they indicate there are negotiations being hammered out at the UN, perhaps in other places as well, that what's going on now, there are some things that are already being agreed to. And the heifer sacrifice and the Jews praying may be a kind of dry run or a telegraphing of an agreement of one sort or another. Now, again, Jerusalem restored as Israel's capital in 2018 by Trump. That was another event. You can't, because prior to that, Tel Aviv was the capital since 1948. Well, nobody made a stink about Tel Aviv being the capital. Nobody cared, right? But when you make Jerusalem capital, now it becomes a big deal. And that's Trump. Trump made the capital. Israel said yes. So again, so another first. First time since AD 135, Jerusalem's been the capital of Israel. So, and again, 135 was when Hadrian and the Romans destroyed Jerusalem, exiled and killed the Jews and took them out of Israel and renamed Israel Palestine after their enemies, the Philistines, and renamed the capital Capitola, like it was, or Capitola, whatever. My Latin's a bit weak. It's very weak, actually. So those are predictions that come true. And there are more things going like that. So it also talks about, the Bible also talks about the world coming up against Israel. And that's what we're seeing. So you start looking at these pieces, Jerusalem, Israel being reestablished, this war, these nations lining up against it, Iran, Persia, first time ever they've attacked Israel, ever in history. And that was documented and predicted. So there's a lot of things going on. So that's 5, 6, 7 different big events that are kind of being overshadowed by the war, but they're very, very important because they foreshadow, not only do they fulfill prophecies, but they foreshadow what's to come. And that's a big deal. Even Jewish rabbis are saying the Messiah, the time has come for the Messiah to be here. There's great momentum on their side to build a temple. And there's also a multi-religious church. It's huge. I think it's in the UAE. It's Muslim, it's Christianity, and it's Judaism. And it's a three, kind of like a triangle or a tripartite building of all three of them. And this is, the Abrahamic church, right? So those are things that are happening that people don't realize a lot. And why wouldn't, I mean, we're all busy, right? So if you don't think this is happening, or if you don't agree with my interpretation, that's fine. I would just say, ask yourself, what's your threshold for credibility, for belief? In other words, if you're an atheist or agnostic or whatever you might be, you say, well, these things are not related. Well, you look at, if they're written down 2 or 3, 4,000 years ago and they're coming true now all at once, you might want to rethink your assumptions. I'm just saying. Okay, so that's what's going on in Israel. And there's more going on, obviously, but that's what's going on right now. Well, one of the factors, I would say, there's a growing number of Jewish people in Israel that are becoming Christians. Now, not a lot of them, but there's a lot more than there were, say, 10 or 20 years ago. Probably a factor of 10, I would imagine. I mean, I've been told different numbers. Again, it's hard to know, but there are a lot more shows, whether it's One for Israel, whether it's So Be It, that people are having. They're on YouTube, and they're getting millions of views in Israel, in Hebrew. So people like me aren't watching their videos. They're Hebrews or Israelis are watching them in Hebrew in Israel. So lots going on there. Let me know what you think. If you like content like this, be sure to subscribe, help the channel out, comment, like, and share. Thank you. See you next time.